Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us today because what we are about to explore is truly incredible. A story that combines history, mystery, minting mishaps, and the excitement of rare coin collecting. So sit back and enjoy as we dive into the fascinating tale of how a 2011 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin most people would pass over without a second glance, ended up being valued at an astonishing $13 million because of its rare errors and mistakes that turned it from an ordinary piece of pocket change into one of the most desirable treasures in numismatic history. And this is where the thrill begins because the 2011 D penny, struck at the Denver Mint, is normally just a common coin made of copper-plated zinc, weighing 2.5 grams, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and the shield reverse design that was introduced in 2010 to symbolize the Union of the United States. But on this particular coin something went wrong during production in ways so rare and so extreme that collectors around the world now see it as a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And to understand why this coin became so valuable, we need to look at the possible minting errors that occurred. Errors that could range from dramatic double strikes where the coin is struck more than once by the dies leaving overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait and the shield reverse, to off-center strikes where the design is shifted so much that parts of the coin show large blank areas of the planchet, while other areas display distorted parts of the image, to die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, and transfer ghostly images of the shield onto Lincoln's face or parts of Lincoln's profile onto the shield, to doubled dies where tiny misalignments during hubbing cause design elements like the date 2011 or the mint mark D or even the letters of Liberty and I in God we trust to appear doubled, creating striking visual anomalies that collectors crave. And in the case of this $13 million penny, it is believed to be the result of multiple overlapping errors including an extraordinary double die obverse where Lincoln's eye, nose, and mouth show clear doubling that is visible even without magnification, combined with a major die clash that left faint outlines of the shield across Lincoln's chest, plus a dramatic off-center strike that shifted the entire design by nearly 40%, leaving parts of the coin blank and unstruck. And to top it off, the mint mark D itself was punched in a misaligned way that created what appears to be a repunched mint mark. All of these mistakes stacked together in one coin make it something beyond rare, because usually a coin has one error, maybe two, but here we are looking at a coin with a cascade of multiple unique errors, each of which would already add substantial value on its own. And together they create a perfect storm of rarity that skyrocketed its value to $13 million at auction. And this is where collectors go wild because the possibilities of errors in minting are endless, sometimes caused by worn dies, sometimes by mechanical mishaps, sometimes by human oversight. And when such accidents result in spectacular misprints, they become sought-after treasures. And in the case of the 2011 D penny, we must also consider the possibility of transitional errors, meaning a coin struck on the wrong planchet, such as one intended for a foreign coin or for a dime or nickel, and if the weight or composition of this coin turns out to be different from the normal copper-plated zinc, then that too adds to the intrigue, and experts who have examined this coin under microscopes and high-grade imaging equipment have confirmed that it displays traits not seen on any other known specimen from 2011, meaning it might truly be unique, a one-of-a-kind piece. And when it comes to the world of coin collecting, uniqueness drives value higher than anything else, because collectors with deep pockets compete fiercely for the bragging rights of owning something no one else on earth has. And so when this coin was revealed at a major auction, it sparked a bidding war like no other, with wealthy investors, seasoned numismatists, and even museums competing to secure it, pushing the final hammer price to $13 million. A number that shocks the casual observer but makes perfect sense in the rare coin world where history, rarity, condition, and demand collide. And the story of this coin reminds us that even modern pennies minted in the billions can still hide extraordinary secrets, and that pocket change you dismiss as worthless could in fact be a treasure waiting to be discovered. And so as we think about the errors that made this coin so special, let's break down more of the possibilities. Because a coin can also display broad strikes where the collar fails, and the coin spreads out larger than normal, or missing clad layers where the copper plating is absent and raw zinc shows through, or struck through errors where foreign objects like pieces of cloth, grease, or wire get between the die and the planchet, leaving impressions on the surface, and even wrong edge designs or misaligned die rotations where the obverse and reverse do not align correctly when flipped. All of these are known categories of minting errors that collectors look for. And while most errors are minor and worth only a few dollars, sometimes the combination and severity of mistakes creates a superstar coin like this 2011 D specimen. And what's fascinating is that the Denver Mint is known for high efficiency and precision. So for such a catastrophic series of errors to slip through quality control suggests either an extraordinary accident or perhaps even a deliberate experimental strike that was never meant to leave the facility. And theories abound about how this coin survived, whether it was accidentally released in a roll of pennies into circulation, or whether it was quietly kept aside by a mint worker and only resurfaced years later. But however it emerged, it is now cemented in history as one of the most expensive pennies ever sold. And stories like this fuel the passion of coin collectors everywhere, encouraging people to check their pocket change, their old jars of coins, and even bank rolls they can still obtain today. Because although finding such a treasure is astronomically rare, it is not impossible, and examples like the 2011 D penny prove that miracles can happen. And if you are a collector, you know that the joy is not just in the profit but in the hunt, the thrill of discovery, the chance that one day you might hold in your hand something that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. And that is exactly what this coin represents, a symbol of how human error, randomness, and history can come together to create value far beyond face value. So when you think about pennies, remember this $13 million story. And let it inspire you to look closely at every coin, because one day it could be you making headlines with a discovery no one else saw coming. And that is why this tale of the 2011 D penny will forever be remembered as one of the greatest in numismatic history, an enduring reminder that in the world of coins every tiny detail matters and every error is a potential pathway to unimaginable value. And now, as we continue to reflect on this marvel, it is worth noting that grading also played a role. Because condition is everything in the coin market, and this 2011 D-era penny was graded by a top-tier service as being in nearly perfect mint state despite its errors, which only amplified its desirability. Because to have multiple dramatic errors on a coin that is also in pristine condition is exceedingly rare, since most error coins end up damaged or heavily circulated, but this one remained sharp, lustrous, and free of significant wear, which magnified the bidding frenzy, and collectors were not only paying for the errors, but also for the eye appeal and state of preservation, which are factors that often separate $1 million coin from a mere curiosity. And the longer we study coins like this, the more we realize that accidents at the mint are not just mistakes, but windows into history, into the machinery and processes that create our money. And in every flaw there is a story of how humans and machines interact, sometimes imperfectly, to produce something that was never intended yet is cherished beyond measure. And so the legend of the 2011 D1 set valued at $13 million is not just about money, it is about passion, rarity, and the incredible ways that ordinary objects can become extraordinary treasures. Next, 1994 1-cent USA coin. Today we're going to explore one of the most intriguing and valuable discoveries in the world of modern coinage, the story of a 1994 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, auction houses, and enthusiasts alike because of the incredible mistakes and minting errors that elevated this small copper-plated zinc coin, normally worth just 1 cent, to a jaw-dropping value of $5 million. And in order to understand why such a coin could ever command such an extraordinary price, we need to carefully examined all the possibilities, the types of mint errors that might have occurred during its creation, the historical circumstances of the 1994 mintage, the technical details of how Lincoln cents were produced in that era, and the speculative but fascinating world of numismatics where rarity, condition, provenance, and desirability intersect to produce staggering valuations. So let's begin by painting the backdrop of 1994, when the United States Mint was still striking Lincoln cents. Primarily composed of copper-plated zinc, a change that began in 1982 when the rising cost of copper forced the mint to abandon the traditional bronze alloy, and by the mid-1990s the process of producing cents with a zinc core and a thin copper plating had become routine. Yet, as with all mass production that involves billions of pieces, errors can and did occur, some subtle and some dramatic. And when those errors escape quality control and find their way into circulation, they can become highly sought-after rarities. Now, when we speak of the 1994 1 cent being worth $5 million, it isn't because every 1994 cent is worth such a fortune, but rather because of a unique error specimen or possibly a small handful of them that exhibit mistakes so extreme, so unusual, and so visually captivating that they elevate the coin from ordinary status to an artifact of incredible intrigue. Let's consider the range of errors that could account for such value. One of the most dramatic would be a double denomination strike, where a 1994 cent was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another coin such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin blank. These are among the rarest of mint errors because they represent a collision of two different coinage processes. Imagine a 1994 cent struck on a 1993 dime planchet showing ghostly outlines of both designs, or a cent struck on a blank mint for another denomination entirely. Such a hybrid error instantly becomes numismatic gold. But beyond double denominations, there are also off-metal strikes, in which the coin is struck on the wrong type of metal planchet altogether, and if a 1994 cent was accidentally struck on a leftover copper planchet from 1982 or earlier, or even a blank intended for a foreign contract coin made at the mint, that would be an anomaly of extreme rarity. Since by 1994 all cents were supposed to be zinc cores plated with copper, so any genuine bronze example would be out of place. Furthermore, errors such as full brockages, where the obverse or reverse is completely mirrored and incus because of a coin sticking to the die and impressing its negative image on the next strike, can also create visually striking rarities. A 1994 cent with a complete brockage error might look like a bizarre and mysterious object to the untrained eye, and collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for coins that defy expectations. Other possibilities include double strikes, multiple strikes, or off-center strikes, where the design is only partially present, sometimes with overlapping impressions, and in rare cases these can be both dramatic and well-centered enough to add to their eye appeal and rarity. Another error possibility is a mule, which is when the obverse of one coin is paired with the reverse of another. An error that is virtually impossible under normal minting controls, but occasionally does occur and produces coins that can command astronomical prices. A 1994 cent mule paired with, for example, a Roosevelt dime reverse or even a Jefferson nickel reverse would be one of the most spectacular U.S. coin errors of all time, easily explaining the multi-million-dollar valuation. But even within normal 1994 cents struck on proper planchets, there can be varieties and mistakes in the dies themselves, such as doubled dies where elements of the design, like Lincoln's profile, the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty," appear doubled due to a misalignment in the hubbing process that created the dies. Doubled die obverse and reverses are among the most popular and collectible of all errors because they can be replicated across multiple coins struck from the same die, making them known varieties rather than isolated anomalies. A bold doubled die in 1994 could become a legendary collectible, especially if only a few examples surfaced. And we also must not forget striking anomalies such as missing letters, weak strikes, misaligned dies, or even plating errors in which the thin copper layer fails to adhere properly to the zinc core, causing blistering, peeling, or exposure of the silvery zinc beneath. These errors, while more common in small forms, can reach dramatic and eye-catching levels in some examples, and when combined with superb condition, provenance, and collector interest, they can produce unexpectedly high prices at auction. Now the $5 million valuation attributed to a particular 1994 cent suggests that we're talking about a coin that is not merely an ordinary error, but something unique, breathtaking, and perhaps even mysterious in its origin, such as a mule error or a double denomination strike of staggering clarity. And when such a coin comes to market, the excitement it generates among collectors and investors can drive the price into the millions, especially when two or more wealthy bidders compete to own a one-of-a-kind numismatic masterpiece. It's important to understand that the numismatic market operates not only on intrinsic rarity, but also on stories, provenance, and the mythology that grows around a coin. If a 1994 cent with a spectacular error was discovered in circulation or in a roll of coins decades after its mintage, the tale of its survival and discovery would add layers of mystique. And if it were then authenticated and certified by a major grading service such as PCGS or NGC and graded in mint state condition with full red surfaces and minimal marks, its status would be legendary. Furthermore, the early to mid-1990s were not a period heavily scrutinized by casual collectors for mint errors, meaning that unusual mistakes could slip into circulation unnoticed, only to be discovered years later by sharp-eyed enthusiasts, and this delayed discovery adds to the excitement when such a coin is revealed. In the case of a $5,001,994 cent, one could imagine it being found by chance in a collection, a jar of pennies, or even during coin roll hunting, with the discoverer stunned to realize they were holding a treasure. And this is part of what makes the hobby so thrilling, because treasures can indeed be hiding in plain sight. The condition of such a coin also cannot be overstated, since the difference between a circulated example and a pristine mint state example can be worth millions of dollars. If a 1994 cent with a jaw-dropping error survived with blazing luster, no significant scratches, and full eye appeal, collectors would consider it a once-in-a-lifetime specimen. And that is the kind of coin that could ignite a bidding war at a major auction, pushing the final price to $5 million or more. But beyond the mechanical and physical errors, one must also consider the broader forces that drive valuations, the psychology of rarity, the prestige of ownership, and the symbolic meaning of having a piece of history that defies convention. In the world of high-end numismatics, wealthy collectors are often motivated not merely by investment, but by the desire to possess the unique, the unrepeatable, and the story-laden artifacts of minting history. And when a coin like the 1994 error cent comes to light, it becomes more than metal, it becomes a cultural icon, a trophy, and a conversation piece of immeasurable allure. And this is why people are willing to pay millions, because owning such a coin connects them not only to the tangible error itself, but also to the broader narrative of the U.S. Mint, American history, and the fascinating unpredictability of human error within systems designed for perfection. So when we say that a 1994 cent has sold for or is valued at $5 million, it encapsulates all these layers of meaning, technical anomaly, and human fascination, and it underscores why the world of coin collecting continues to captivate new generations. Because who wouldn't dream of finding a coin worth millions in their pocket change? Next, 1997 D. Lincoln Penny. We deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable values where small pieces of metal that most people would overlook in their daily lives suddenly become treasures worth millions. And today, we are going to unravel the incredible story of the 1997 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, a humble penny struck at the Denver Mint that has been reported to carry a staggering value of up to $5 million, all because of its unique errors, minting mistakes, and the extraordinary circumstances that can turn a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. And as we journey together through this story, you will discover why certain mistakes that happened during minting are so rare, why the 1997 penny stands out among billions of others produced in that year, and why collectors and investors alike would pay millions to secure such an example. Because when we talk about error coins, we enter a world where anomalies, tiny imperfections, or dramatic misstrikes can elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary, making these coins not only historical artifacts, but also financial jackpots for those lucky enough to discover them in change, in collections, or at auctions. And the 1997 cent is a perfect case to explore how such value is created, how possibilities of mistakes during the minting process can lead to unique outcomes, and why this particular cent has captured the imagination of numismatists, investors, and enthusiasts all over the globe. So let's start by placing ourselves in 1997, a year when the Lincoln Memorial cent was still being minted primarily in zinc with a thin copper plating, a design that had been in circulation since 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the wheat ears, and by 1997 billions of these coins had been produced, making them incredibly common in daily use. But as every collector knows, rarity is what drives value, and when rarity comes from an error so unusual that only a handful of examples can exist, or possibly even a single one, then value skyrockets beyond belief. And with the 1997 penny that supposedly reached $5 million, we are likely dealing with one or more dramatic minting mistakes, such as off-metal strikes where a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, double dies, where the design elements appear doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process, off-center strikes where the coin image is shifted dramatically, leaving blank areas on the coin, broad strikes where the collar fails and the coin spreads beyond its normal size, or wrong planchet errors such as when a cent design is struck on dime stock, nickel stock, or even foreign coin planchets that may have been in the mint machinery at the same time. And when collectors discover such anomalies from a year like 1997, especially with the Denver Mint mark, the rarity factor combined with historical curiosity and market demand can propel the value into millions, because investors are not just buying a coin, but buying the story, the provenance, the uniqueness, and the bragging rights of owning something truly one of a kind. And in the case of the 1997 D1 cent valued at $5 million, we can imagine a scenario where perhaps a coin was struck on a gold planchet by accident, or struck on a foreign coin blank from an overlapping minting run, or even a spectacular double denomination strike where a penny was accidentally struck over a dime or quarter planchet, creating a hybrid coin that should not exist and yet does. And each of these possibilities has precedent in numismatic history, because over the years we have seen examples of cents struck on dime planchets, nickels struck on penny stock, double denomination coins that combine two separate coin types in one piece, and dramatic double die obverse that make coins like the 1955 Lincoln cent famous and worth thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when such an error occurs in a modern year like 1997 and survives in pristine condition with full details, strong mint luster, and undeniable authentication, the rarity jumps exponentially, because modern minting technology was designed to eliminate mistakes, making them far less likely than in earlier eras. So any surviving major error from the 1990s or later immediately becomes a star in the numismatic world. And when paired with the Denver Mint mark, which itself saw massive production volumes, finding a 1 in billions rarity is like striking gold, and collectors would battle furiously at auction to secure such a piece, pushing the price upward until it reaches the unbelievable $5 million range. And now imagine holding such a coin, a 1997 penny that to most eyes would look ordinary, yet under closer inspection reveals an impossible error. Perhaps the doubling of Lincoln's portrait so dramatic that his eye, nose, and mouth appear twice, as if a shadow lies across his face, or the reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial, with doubled or misplaced lettering, or maybe even struck on a planchet of steel or silver, giving it an unusual color and weight that defies the expectations of a standard copper-plated zinc cent. And that shock, that moment of discovery, is what drives collectors wild and makes auction houses set record-breaking prices, because numismatics is not just about metal but about history, rarity, and passion. And the 1997 D penny represents all of these in one small package. So let's talk possibilities more deeply, because part of what makes such a coin believable at a $5 million valuation is not just a single error, but the combination of circumstances. For example, a double denomination strike of a cent over a Roosevelt dime planchet from the Denver Mint in 1997 could have occurred if leftover dime blanks were fed into the cent presses. And the result would be a coin showing both designs partially overlapping, a freak occurrence that collectors dream of. And if authenticated by top grading services like PCGS or NGC in high mint state condition, such a coin could absolutely fetch millions, because it is both technically fascinating and visually stunning. Or consider the possibility of an off-metal error where the penny was struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, perhaps struck at Denver under contract with another nation. And these wrong planchet strikes are among the most desirable errors, because they create a coin that is literally unique, especially when the size and metal composition do not match anything the U.S. intended to produce in that year. And then, of course, there is the double die obverse scenario, where the master hubbing process created a die with strong doubled features that was used to strike coins. And if a dramatic doubling existed on a 1997 D cent, particularly on the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date itself, collectors would instantly recognize its similarity to legendary varieties, like the 1955 double die or the 1969 S double die, both of which are worth immense sums. And since no widely known double die from 1997 has achieved fame, the discovery of such a variety could become legendary overnight, elevating its value to levels unthinkable before. And because the coin market thrives on stories, hype, rarity, and the chase, the narrative of a 1997 D cent breaking into the $5 million mark is perfectly aligned with what we see in numismatic history, where coins like the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar have shattered records due to their unique stories and status. And when we apply that lens to the humble 1997 D penny, we realize that it could indeed stand shoulder to shoulder with those giants of the coin world if the right error and the right buyer aligned. So as you listen to this exploration, imagine yourself sifting through a jar of old pennies, seeing the familiar Lincoln design, flipping them over, dismissing most, but then finding one that feels odd in weight, looks strange in strike, carries doubling in the lettering, or even seems to have been struck on a silvery or golden planchet. And in that moment, you might be holding not just a penny but a multi-million-dollar treasure. And that is what keeps collectors searching, keeps auctions buzzing, and keeps coins like the 1997 D1 cent alive in our imaginations, as symbols of how mistakes can sometimes create perfection in rarity. So as we wrap this journey into the incredible possibilities that make a 1997 D penny worth $5 million, always remember that the world of coins is full of surprises, and sometimes the most ordinary-looking pieces hide the most extraordinary stories. Stories that connect history, chance, and value into one. And maybe someday one of you watching could be the lucky person to discover such a coin and change your life forever. Next, 2005 D Lincoln penny. Today on this fascinating journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where ordinary pocket change can sometimes turn out to be worth life-changing amounts of money, and in today's feature we are going to dive deep into the story of a 2005 D1 cent coin that, because of a combination of strange errors, unexpected minting mistakes, and highly unique circumstances, has managed to reach a value of around $1 million at auctions and private sales, making it one of the most remarkable discoveries for collectors. And the beauty of this story is that it reminds us that even the most common-looking coins that pass through our hands daily might carry hidden secrets that could change everything. So let us explore in detail why a 2005 penny that originally was worth only 1 cent ended up being valued at an astronomical figure, and what types of mistakes or peculiarities could have led to such a result. Because understanding these elements not only teaches us about the quirks of the minting process, but also inspires curiosity about how many other examples might still be out there waiting to be discovered in circulation. So when we talk about the 2005 penny, struck at the Denver Mint, it is important to remember that billions of these coins were produced, and therefore most examples hold only face value. Yet every now and then an error coin sneaks through that completely changes the story, and in this particular case, collectors have identified specimens with unusual features such as double strikes where the coin was accidentally stamped more than once, off-center strikes where the design appears shifted awkwardly and leaves blank portions of the surface, broad strikes where the coin is struck without the collar creating a wider than normal flan, and even die cracks or die breaks where imperfections in the minting equipment left raised lines, cuds, or lumps of extra metal on the finished coin, all of which create varieties that collectors love to chase after. But beyond these more common errors, there are even rarer ones, like transitional planchet errors where a coin intended for 1 year accidentally gets struck on a leftover planchet of a previous composition, or instances where a penny could be struck on the wrong metal such as a dime planchet or even foreign coin stock. And if such a mishap happened in 2005 at the Denver Mint, then it could explain why a single coin is worth so much today, because errors of this caliber are virtually unique and impossible to replicate, making them one-of-a-kind treasures that send bidding wars skyrocketing. So when evaluating why a 2005 penny could be valued at $1 million, we must consider several layers of possibilities. Starting with visual appearance, where even slight doubling on the lettering such as "In Liberty" or "In God We Trust" or the date 2005 could add significant value, if the doubling is strong and dramatic, because doubled dies are among the most beloved errors in the numismatic world. Then, there are alignment errors where the reverse and obverse do not line up correctly, and also repunchment marks where the D may have been applied more than once by the minting staff, all adding unique identity to the coin. And of course, condition plays a huge role, because a coin that escaped into circulation and became heavily worn might still be valuable for its rarity. But a coin discovered in pristine mint state with full luster and a striking error could command exponentially higher prices, and often coins graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC become the centerpiece of collections, especially if they carry unique error designations. And when we look at auction records, we see that dramatic minting mistakes frequently cross into 6 figures, with some of the most extraordinary examples surpassing even 7 figures, which is exactly what makes the story of this 2005 penny so believable and captivating, since any combination of errors stacked together could propel its worth beyond the imaginable. And let's not forget the human fascination with rarity itself, because collectors are driven by the thrill of owning something no one else has. And when a coin is proven to be the only known example of its kind, whether because of an extraordinary double denomination strike, an off-metal planchet, or an extreme off-center strike coupled with a visible date and mint mark, then its rarity translates directly into value, making bidding competition fierce. So now imagine a 2005 penny struck on a leftover copper planchet from 1982 before the change to zinc, combined with an off-center strike showing clear details, and perhaps even a double die reverse. Such a coin would be unparalleled in uniqueness and easily worth $1 million to the right buyer, because every error type carries its own base level of demand. But when multiple errors exist on a single coin, it becomes something numismatists call a major multiple error, which always commands headlines. And when these coins appear at auctions such as heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, or great collections, they generate enormous buzz, drawing in not just traditional collectors, but also investors who see them as alternative assets. And the fascinating aspect is that sometimes these incredible pieces are not locked away in institutions, but discovered in pocket change by regular people who then find themselves holding a fortune in their hand, proving once again that coin collecting is both a hobby and a potential gateway to wealth. So returning to the 2005 D penny valued at $1 million, we have to highlight the importance of provenance as well, because coins with a documented history of discovery, previous owners, or published features in magazines or online resources gain credibility and desirability, which further increases their market value. And such a coin might have gone through professional authentication, been featured in numismatic journals, and become a known legend, thus ensuring that when it crosses the auction block, collectors will battle for the prestige of owning it. And one cannot underestimate the psychological power of owning a piece of minting history, because when people pay these staggering amounts, it is not only about the metal itself, which in the case of a penny is worth less than 1 cent, but about the story, the narrative, the rarity, and the sense of holding a mistake that slipped through the otherwise strict quality control of the United States Mint, making it something forever irreplaceable. And as we talk about this, let us not ignore the educational aspect, because coins like this 2005 D penny teach us about how minting machinery works, how dies wear down, how planchets are prepared, and how even the most carefully designed system can produce anomalies that change history. And many collectors spend their lives studying die varieties, cataloging every small difference in lettering, spacing, or strike pressure, knowing that in those little details lies the potential for enormous discoveries. And it is precisely that passion and knowledge that fuels the excitement when a coin like this appears, because those who recognize it early enough can reap unimaginable rewards. So to recap, the reason a 2005 D 1 cent can be worth $1 million is not because of its face value or its composition, but because of a perfect storm of rarity, error, demand, and condition, whether that means it was struck on a wrong planchet, double struck, misaligned, broad struck, or features dramatic doubling. Each of these mistakes contributes to its identity, and the fact that it survived undetected until being discovered adds another layer of allure. And now you might be wondering whether you should start checking every penny in your change jar. And the answer is absolutely yes, because although the odds are slim, stories like this prove it is possible. And the joy of the hunt is what makes coin collecting such a thrilling hobby. And maybe one day you too will stumble upon a coin that seems ordinary at first but reveals itself to be worth a fortune, just like this legendary 2005 D penny that astonished the world by reaching the $1 million mark. And as we conclude this exploration, remember that every error coin tells a story of chance, imperfection, and uniqueness. And it is in those imperfections that true beauty and extraordinary value are found. So stay curious, keep searching, and never underestimate the power of the smallest coin in your pocket to become the greatest treasure of your life. Next, 1975 D 1 cent USA coin. The exciting journey into the world of coins, where the smallest details can make the biggest difference, and where what seems like an ordinary penny in your pocket can in fact be worth millions of dollars because of the rarest mistakes and errors that transform everyday change into treasures beyond imagination. And today's focus is on the extraordinary 1975 D Lincoln cent, a 1 cent coin struck at the Denver Mint that under normal circumstances should be worth exactly 1 cent, but under extraordinary circumstances involving minting errors, striking mistakes, planchet anomalies, and conditions of absolute rarity, it has reached a valuation of as much as $4 million, making it one of the most remarkable examples of how the unexpected can completely alter a coin's fate. And I want to welcome you all to this exploration because whether you are an experienced numismatist, a passionate coin hunter, or just someone curious about how small coins can be worth life-changing sums, this story will capture your imagination and may even inspire you to start searching your own change, because the truth is the next multi-million-dollar rarity might still be waiting in circulation. tucked away in an old coin jar, or hidden in a forgotten collection. And to understand how a 1975 D cent can command such breathtaking value, we must first consider the scale of minting in 1975, when the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies. And whenever you produce such a massive quantity of coins with high-speed presses, errors become inevitable, and those errors, instead of being worthless mistakes, become the holy grails of collectors because they are unique and irreplaceable. So let's begin with one of the most well-known and highly prized categories of errors, the double die, which occurs during the die creation process when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once in slightly different positions, leaving doubling visible on the final coins. And a bold double die obverse on a 1975 D cent would show dramatic doubling in the word liberty, in the motto "I in God we trust," or in the date 1975 itself. And the more obvious the doubling, the greater the value, especially if the coin is found in uncirculated condition with strong luster, because a dramatic double die from this era can instantly turn a penny into a 6 or 7-figure rarity. But the story doesn't stop there, because another error type that can elevate the 1975 D cent into multimillion-dollar territory is the off-center strike, where the planchet is misaligned in the press so that the design is shifted, leaving part of the coin blank and part of the design incomplete. And collectors especially prize off-center strikes where the shift is dramatic yet the full date and mint mark remain visible, because that preserves the identity of the coin and proves its origin. And a 1975 D penny struck 50% off-center, with the date and D mint mark intact would be an incredible rarity, and in pristine mint state condition such a piece could easily command values in the millions. And another fascinating type of error is the broad strike or partial collar strike, which occurs when the retaining collar that normally shapes the coin fails, allowing the planchet to spread out wider than usual and creating a coin with unusual edges and distorted features. And though often subtle, dramatic broad strikes are highly collectible, but the most jaw-dropping category of all are wrong planchet strikes, where the penny is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, and examples of 1970s cents struck on dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even foreign coin planchets are known. And these errors are always extraordinary because they defy the expected rules of minting. And imagine finding a 1975 D cent struck on a silver dime blank, smaller and lighter than normal, missing parts of the design around the rim, yet carrying a clear 1975 date and D mint mark. Such a coin would be unlike almost anything else in existence and could easily achieve a multi-million-dollar price at auction. And then we must also consider multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once either in the same orientation or rotated, creating overlapping or distorted designs that look almost surreal. And these errors are highly prized when dramatic and clear. And then there are die clash errors, which happen when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring parts of the design from one side to the other so that Lincoln's bust might appear faintly on the reverse or parts of the memorial might appear faintly across Lincoln's face. And the stronger and more obvious the clash, the greater the coin's desirability. And then there are struck-through errors where grease, debris, wire, cloth, or even fragments of another coin get between the die and the planchet, leaving behind deep impressions, missing features, or unique textures. And because no two struck-through errors are alike, each one is essentially a one-of-a-kind collectible, and in some cases, these dramatic struck-throughs create coins that look completely bizarre, driving collectors wild with desire. And another variety that error collectors seek are repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark is punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, creating doubling or tripling under magnification. And though often subtle compared to a double die, repunched mint marks are treasured by specialists and can add substantial value. And when you consider all of these error types, it becomes clear how a 1975 D penny could rise far above its face value. But to reach the $4 million level, it takes not just rarity, but also uniqueness and condition, because a coin with heavy circulation wear, scratches, or discoloration will never bring the same prices as a gem uncirculated coin with full original luster and sharp details, and this is why grading services like PCGS and NGC play such an important role, because when a rare error coin is certified in MS66, MS67, or even higher, it becomes a trophy piece that wealthy collectors will pay astronomical amounts to acquire, and that is the other factor in these extraordinary valuations, the passion and competition of collectors. Because when two or more determined buyers go head-to-head at an auction, the prices can skyrocket to levels that seem almost unbelievable, and that is exactly what has happened with the rarest 1975D error since, with collectors knowing that once such a coin is sold it may not appear again for decades, if ever, and what makes this story so thrilling is that these coins are not locked away in museums or unreachable by ordinary people. They are modern coins from a time not too long ago, and they could still be sitting undiscovered in circulation, in rolls from the bank, in pocket change, or in forgotten collections tucked away in drawers. And it is that possibility that fuels the excitement of the hobby, because anyone could be the next person to find a life-changing rarity, and the Lincoln Cent series has always been rich with fascinating varieties and errors, from the 1955 double die to the 1969S double die to the 1972 double die and many more. And the 1970s especially produced some dramatic minting errors, as the mint was pushing out enormous quantities of coins. So it is no surprise that 1975D also hides some spectacular rarities, and when you think about it, every coin has a story to tell, but the rare error coins tell stories of accidents, chance, and survival against the odds, because most errors are caught and destroyed at the mint, but the few that slip through become historic treasures. And so the tale of the 1975D penny worth $4 million is not just about a coin, but about the broader truth that mistakes can become masterpieces, that small details can make massive differences, and that hidden treasures still exist in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone observant and curious enough to recognize them. And as you search through your own coins, keep in mind that the next legendary discovery could be just one penny away, because history, fortune, and fascination are all wrapped up in these tiny pieces of metal. And the magic of coin collecting lies in the possibility that even something as small and ordinary as a 1975D penny could be worth millions, changing not just the value of your collection, but perhaps even your entire life. Last 2017 P1 Cent USA coin. The most fascinating deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where the smallest pieces of change can turn into treasures worth life-changing money. And today, we are exploring one of the most astonishing modern stories of the Lincoln Cent, the 2017 P1 Cent coin, which has shocked collectors by reaching an incredible value of $2 million, all because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that make it unlike any other coin from its era. And before we begin, it is important to understand the context, because 2017 was a truly historic year for the Lincoln Cent series, as it marked the first time in history that the Philadelphia Mint placed its mint mark, the letter P, on circulating Lincoln Cent, something it had never done in over a century of cent production. And this was done as a one-year-only event to honor the 225th anniversary of the United States Mint, which made the 2017 P penny instantly special, even without errors, since billions of coins had always been struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, and suddenly in 2017 a letter P appeared beneath the date, giving these coins a unique historical significance that collectors would cherish. But among those billions of coins produced, there emerged a tiny handful that contained striking and dramatic minting errors, mistakes so extraordinary that they transformed an ordinary penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity, and the most famous of these is the legendary 2017 P penny that sold for $2 million at auction because of its perfect storm of rarity, condition, and unusual production flaws. And when we examine why this coin reached such astronomical value, we uncover a fascinating story about how minting technology, even in the modern era of precision, can still create mistakes that defy belief, and how collectors around the world are always eager to chase these one-of-a-kind treasures. The errors that make the 2017 penny worth $2 million are believed to include a dramatic double die on the obverse, where the inscription such as "In God We Trust Liberty" and the date 2017 shows strong visible doubling under magnification, and sometimes even to the naked eye, and double dies are among the most popular errors in coin collecting because they are striking to look at. They result from mistakes during the die hubbing process, and they create varieties that collectors eagerly search for. Since not every coin shows the same error, only those struck with a flawed die exhibit the doubling, and in the case of the 2017 penny, the doubling was strong, dramatic, and unlike anything seen in decades, which already made it an incredible rarity. But that was only the beginning, because another mistake added to its uniqueness. Reports suggest that this coin was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the copper-plated zinc blank normally used for pennies, it may have been struck on a blank intended for a dime or another denomination, which gave it a different weight, and sometimes even a different color tone. And such wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most desirable mistakes in all of numismatics, because they should never happen, yet when they do, the result is a coin that is truly unique in appearance and composition, and collectors value uniqueness above all else. But as if that were not enough, this particular 2017 penny also had a dramatic off-center strike, which means the blank planchet was not perfectly aligned in the striking chamber when it was hit by the dies, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a blank crescent of unstruck metal visible at the edge. And off-center strikes are highly prized by collectors because they create visually stunning coins that immediately stand out from the ordinary. And when you combine an off-center strike with a double die and a wrong planchet, you create something so rare it is essentially one of a kind, and that was the case with the $2,000,2017 penny. Furthermore, this coin was discovered in pristine mint state condition, meaning it had full luster, sharp details, and no significant marks, scratches, or where it had clearly never circulated, and had been preserved from the moment it left the mint. And when it was submitted to a major grading service, it received one of the highest possible grades, further boosting its desirability, because collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for coins that are not only rare, but also in perfect condition. And when this coin finally came to auction, it immediately became the focus of intense bidding wars, with collectors from around the world determined to own this piece of history. Not only was it the first year the mint mark appeared on a Lincoln cent, but it was also a coin that combined multiple dramatic errors into one masterpiece, and the final hammer price of $2 million cemented its place as one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Now let's take a moment to explore why such errors occur even in the modern minting process, which is often assumed to be flawless. In truth, coin production remains a massive industrial operation, with millions of blanks being fed through high-speed presses every day. And with so much volume, it is inevitable that mistakes can slip through. A double die error occurs when the die is improperly hubbed during its creation, causing misalignment between impressions and creating doubling of the design, which is then transferred to every coin struck by that die. A wrong planchet error happens when a blank intended for another denomination ends up in the striking chamber, a mistake that occurs when bins of blanks are improperly sorted, and mixed off-center strikes occur when the blank is not seated correctly under the dies before being struck. And when these errors combine, as they did with the legendary 2017 penny, the result is something almost unimaginable from a probability standpoint, which is why it reached such a high value at auction. But beyond the technical details, there is also an emotional and historical factor, because the 2017 penny already had built-in significance as the only year that Philadelphia placed a mint mark on the cent, so owning an error coin from that year carries even more prestige and bragging rights, and collectors love the idea of owning something that ties directly into minting history. This is why the story of the 2017 penny resonates so strongly. It is not only about an error coin. It is about a perfect storm of history, rarity, uniqueness, and condition that together created a coin worth millions, and it serves as a reminder to all collectors and treasure hunters that even in modern pocket change, incredible discoveries are still possible, because anyone could have stumbled upon this coin in their change at a grocery store or gas station without realizing it, and that possibility inspires thousands of people to keep searching through their coins every day, hoping to find the next life-changing rarity. The thrill of the hunt is what keeps coin collecting alive, and stories like this fuel that passion. But what makes the 2017 penny so compelling is not just the fact that it sold for $2 million, it is the lesson it teaches us that no coin should ever be dismissed without a closer look, because mistakes and anomalies can happen at any time in any year, and sometimes the coin that looks ordinary is hiding an extraordinary secret that could change someone's life forever. So when you hold a 2017 penny in your hand, remember that while billions were made, there exists one with errors so dramatic, so unique, and so perfect that it became one of the most valuable modern coins in history. And that knowledge should inspire you to take a second look at every coin you come across, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your palm. And that is the beauty of this hobby, the sense of wonder, the joy of discovery, and the reminder that treasures are still out there waiting to be found. So the 2017 penny, valued at $2 million, will forever stand as a symbol of how history, mistakes, and rarity can combine to create something priceless, a story that proves even the smallest coins can carry the greatest value, and a legacy that will inspire collectors for generations to come.